Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. I'm not really a Commanders fan, but they got the Giants and Bengals the next couple of weeks, so I am excited to see how Jaden Daniels handles those tests. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium.
TD, Tutty, take it to the house, in for 6, whatever you call a touchdown. One thing's for sure, touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, from the special teams or defense, we don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Jenkins. That's code Jenkins, Jenkins, for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Ready to place your first NFL?
We're live.
Welcome to Jenkins and Jones on the Volume Podcast Network. It is Thursday, September 19th. Usually when we're laughing when we start the show, I feel like I have a better control of the situation. But Tyler was just bringing up the two black dudes who are in the relationship who went viral on Twitter for looking exactly like each other in the beach. And I was genuinely laughing because I really did think that it was faked.
I legitimately thought they were twins, bro. That's just crazy.
I like, to some extent they're playing that up on purpose, right? Like they clearly are using the same beard oil and shit, you know.
It gotta be, dog. Like there's no way that they coincidentally wound up together. Those dudes were like, wow, you look just like me. Wow, you look just like me. Let's be boyfriends. Like that's wild.
It's like if I saw Dan Levitard, bro, at an event, and I was just like, what's up? I like the whole vibe. All right, it's Thursday, September 19th. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We got the last ever Woj bomb. We've got Diddy turning out to be the worst person in history, perhaps. And we've got some football talk as well. And we're also going to be joined a little later by special guest Cy Alexander, the all-time winningest HBCU basketball coach in American history. Very excited to talk to Coach and hear some A&T down home reminiscing between he and Tyler. That's gonna be fun.
A very special Aggie Pride episode coming to y'all.
Yes, as always, you got the hat and the scarf's always there, but the hat is special for today.
You already know, man. Had to break out my finest paraphernalia for my fellow Aggie hopping on.
As always, Jenkins and Jones, hosted by Dragonfly Jonez, aka Tyler.
Everybody have a gun.
LaJethro Jenkins, aka John, has been shadow banned not just by Twitter but by the podcast itself. We're searching for him. No, John's not here today, but we'll be back on the next episode. I'm Guardy B, aka Mike.
Motherfucking Mike.
The shadow ban on John is crazy.
It is crazy. That Twitter shadow ban is nuts.
If you type @ and type in LaJethro Jenkins, the S does not come up. Like you have to manually type the whole shit out. It's really crazy.
Can't be tagged in images. Can't be. It's bizarre.
Yeah. That's Jackson Saffon.
Wada.
And we're also produced by the equally lovely and talented Josh Rodriguez.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Does anybody know the reason for John's shadow ban, or is it just he's John and it sounds kind of crazy?
I don't think we know. I don't think he knows.
Well, he got booted over using the N-word that someone had reported it as hate speech. Isn't that true, Tyler?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
So he had like a suspension, and it was literally like, I think he referred to a white guy as a white the N-word, and someone reported it. If I'm remembering it correctly, it was like, this is hate speech. We had a whole segment that was like, there must be 0 black people who work at Twitter if he's getting banned over this for using a racial slur.
Yeah,
but
I had to reach out to my homie who worked at Twitter. Like, yo, you got to do something about this. Shouts to the homie TJ because he got my boy back on these Twitter streets after that.
Yes, but I think the shadow ban started then, but it's gone in and out because there have been stretches where you could tag him and stuff. But it is at this point, like you literally, if you type in LaJethro Jenkins in the search bar, his account does not come up. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's their bad, bro. They should have. I've been saying this for years, but they should have just given y'all the company Like, if he really wanted to save his own company, he should not. The worst thing he could have done is sell the shit to Elon, because Twitter it's never been like, if you search, I saw yesterday Howard Stern was trending. I went, oh damn, I wonder if Howard Stern died. So I clicked Howard Stern, and I got 500 tweets about Taylor Swift and Donald Trump. Like,
That's
you know, like not one thing about how, like, I was like, I clicked on your fucking trending topic, Twitter. This shit it's busted beyond recognition at this point, man. It's sad
yeah,
as
that
fuck.
shit broke as fuck, bro. Quote
Yeah.
tweets don't work. You'll see you have 40 fucking quote tweets and click on that shit and it'll say there's nothing here to see.
Yeah.
That broke ass website ran by a broke ass boy. Them weak ass Tesla garbage bins, man.
Yeah.
Which means
I like YC said the search function breaking is the latest fake last straw. Like, this is my new fake last
Right,
straw
right,
with
right.
Twitter.
Yeah.
There aren't
No,
any
no,
actual
no.
last straws, but that's the newest fake one.
Yeah.
All right, we did get one thing that has functioned throughout the history of Twitter is Woj bombs, and we did get our final Woj bomb, which was he announced his surprise retirement. I have to say, considering what a big figure he is, not just in the media landscape, but like as a basketball fan, he's almost a de facto like extra broadcasting network where you found out the draft picks ahead of time, like you found out everything ahead of time. I was surprised that this didn't leak out anywhere, but he is going back to his alma mater, St. Bonaventure, to be the basketball GM. I think that's sort of like, I'm not really 100% sure what that entails, but Tyler, this is going to leave a big hole in the basketball world. What did you think of Woj's Woj? I guess I can't say he bombed himself, but yeah, the self Woj bomb.
Yeah, it was of course first I was thinking, wow, we just lost perhaps, the greatest scoop man in like the digital era when it comes to basketball. But then I found out the details and found out he was going back to his alma mater to be the GM, and I was like, good for him, because Woj is a dude super connected, right? Like if he wanted a front office job in the NBA, he could for sure get that. He's got buddies in high places, But for him to quit his job at ESPN and go back to his alma mater and be the GM, you can tell that that's the job that he wants. That's the dream job for him right there, right? Like that's the job that he picked over all the other options that he could have, went down. And so I'm happy for him, bro. Like that's the fucking dream. Like you and me, we're both big alma mater guys. You with Poly, me with A&T. So like that seems like some dream shit to me. Like he is about to live dynasty mode.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
was
mean?
about to say the same thing.
Yeah, he is living dynasty mode, bringing his alma mater back to greatness, right? Like I'm super happy for him, dude. It's a dream job, and
Yeah.
I know and it sounds like it's going to be fun because, like I said, there's a certain level of investment for your alma mater where you're doing it out of pride, and you're doing it, to kind of give back because you feel like you owe your alma mater so much for them being there for you in the formative college years and stuff. So I get it, man. I'm happy for him. Like if I could have a situation like that where I get to go back to A&T and be in a position like that, dude, that would be a dream job.
Yeah.
And to Mike's point, he literally invented the job. He made it up. There is no such thing as a general manager for college sports teams, that for individual college sports teams. They have an athletic director.
Yeah.
But there is no like GM for the basketball team of UCLA or whatever. And so he got to, which is not a shot. It's incredibly cool that he has the cachet, and also the school was able to be like, this is a good, smart thing for us to do, obviously, to invent this job for him. And I can't imagine it works out poorly. The couple bullet points I saw on what the job entails, Mike, are like NIL stuff, which he's a well-connected man, recruiting, and among other things.
Yeah.
He's basically going to have a say in recruiting and coaching moves and things of that nature with none of the stress. Like, you know what I mean?
That's awesome.
He's not going to be on the sideline, coaching, being an assistant or a coach or whatever. He's going to be, kicked up in his office, maybe, working remotely like 2 or 3 days out the week,
Right.
pulling strings how he can. It sounds like a dream job, and I'm happy for him, bro.
It was funny that he did the notes thing as though he were like just looking forward to spending more time with his family.
Yep.
And then it was like, no, he's not spending time with his family. He's just taking a different basketball job.
Ball is life, bro. And he's just going down a different road right now.
Yeah, for sure. This does leave a hole in our basketball culture. And let me just make you a pitch, Mr. Dragonfly Jonez. We need someone who's awake on their phone at all hours of the night, who loves basketball, who has the ability to be funny within corporate constraints.
Check.
and that's already maybe got a good sized following that's into basketball. So are you going to throw your hat in the ring to be the new, are we going to get Jones bombs? Are you throwing your hat in the ring?
Look, Sham needs a new nemesis right now, and I I don't think there's anyone more cut for the job than me. Like you said, I'm a basketball fanatic. I go to sleep at like 3 or 4 in the morning every fucking day. Like that's just the normal routine. You know what I'm saying? Woj needs to go ahead and give me that book of business that he got to tell all his plugs, all his sources. So, just holler at me, man. I'll break some news for you here and there, dog. But don't come at me with no bullshit. I don't give a fuck about no mid-level exception deals. I don't give a fuck about fucking 12th, 11th men getting traded for cash and shit. Give me the juicy shit, bro.
I think that would get support though.
Yeah.
Like I feel like every time we're like, is Paul George gonna get traded? Is Paul George gonna get traded? And then Woj is like, so and so has gotten a 2-way deal, and everyone's like, no, what? I thought this is not the Woj notification I thought I was gonna get. So if you just axe all those, Tyler, I feel like that'll be a good platform to run on.
Trim the fat, baby. We know what the people are here for.
Yeah. It was tough. I don't even remember the guy's name, but ESPN did announce that they're like replacing him with like a new breaking news guy. And it was like, Shams is going to drag that guy's corpse up and down the streets, I feel like.
Who is the dude? Do you remember his name? Or
I think his last name was Rose or something, but he like introduced himself yesterday, and it was like, now is not the time for this, bro.
You never want to be the man following the man, bro. You want to be the guy following the guy who followed the guy.
That's right.
Everyone gets all their animosity of how they missed the guy out on the guy who replaced them. And then
I'm sorry. This was a satiric. It was this. I got.
But there is
got on that.
Odds on a unnamed sports book. I don't want to no free ads to not sports books. That Shams is the favorite at -150 to replace him, to have them bring him over from wherever he is, Athletic, whatever he is right now. Chris Haynes.
Oh, he's at wherever. I'm sorry.
he's at where he's at multiple places. I think Stadium, Athletic, like. Chris Haynes is a free agent now. I forgot about that. He just recently got his deal just expired, so he could always re-up, but like he's a free agent technically, so he's a likely candidate. And then some other sort of like half insider but half reporter types, Tim Bontemps, Jake Fisher, and Mark Stein are +650, +800, and +1200. Those guys are more like regular journalists who do some of that sort of like transactional reporting, but it's not their whole life. So like I would assume it's one of the top 2 guys if it's
Tyler, did you see the video I sent this morning of CJ Stroud talking to Jalen Johnson?
Yeah.
I think I love this because I do feel like we're approaching a point where it's going to start getting worked into CBAs, that like how players go on podcasts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Jalen Johnson went on Richard Sherman's podcast and talked about shout out to Richard Sherman. He revealed that he had a certain way of covering a double move when he was in Palms coverage, and CJ Stroud was mic'd up, went up to him during their game on Monday night and was like, "You're not going to get me." I saw that podcast. That shit. First of all, I love CJ Stroud, and I love the way he is with guys in the NFL. You would just not think that dude was a 2nd-year player. But I love this. Like, dude, I don't need to watch film. I just need to check his podcast tape and see what he's talking about.
It's a new day. I feel like being extremely online is an attribute that you're going to have to be, especially if you're a quarterback in the NFL now, with all these player pods and guys, giving away their secrets, like giving away game like Jalen did there. But yeah, CJ Stroud, man, he's one of those dudes who, like, the more I hear from him, the more I want to hear from him. Like, he had that really good pod where he would bring on a defensive player and they would draw up like, their dream defensive schemes, and he draw up his dream, offensive scheme, and they talk about like why the play would win out. So, he's not only someone who's a dude who's hilarious, got a good personality, but he's a student of this shit. Like he is a fucking football computer. Did you see the moment he had when he went up to Caleb Martin after the game? I was like, bro,
Caleb Williams,
Caleb Williams. I always confuse him with Caleb Martin. That's how I'm old as fuck. But he went up to Caleb and he was like, "Hey man, you got to stop getting hit, bro." He was like, "You got what it takes.
Stop taking those hits."
Yeah, he's like, "You got what it takes to be good in this league, and it's in you, man. You just got to believe in yourself." I know Caleb's like, "Bro, you are 1 year older than me." I do not want to hear this shit. But honestly, like besides the whole CJ maybe trying to little bro. I mean, you got to soak that game in because CJ Stroud came in and hit the league running. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, he might be a little too young to big bro you, but there's some advice to take from that dude because, Caleb's struggling a bit,
They are actually the exact same age, which is also
They have a
makes it even funnier. They're both
6 week age difference.
Yeah, they're both. But to your point, like, yes, and he said yesterday, he was asked about it, he said, I wasn't trying to little bro him. Last year, my rookie year, a lot of guys, a lot of veteran guys pulled me aside and gave me advice, and it meant a lot to me, and I incorporated a lot of it. But it was like, number one, you're not a veteran guy yet.
You're a second year dude.
Second year. And number two, you're the same age, and he just lost to you in somewhat embarrassing fashion. It's also, I love the advice of you need to stop getting sacked all the time. It's like, well, yeah, I did have that actually.
Like, wow, never considered that. That is insightful.
I don't know. I thought, but I appreciated that CJ Stroud did that, and I also fully understood Caleb Williams is like, I don't want to hear any of this shit right now, bro. Send me a fucking text. I'm trying to get off this field and go ice my entire body.
Yeah, Caleb did not want to hear any of that shit, dog.
We've also had this week the debut of some new incredible Harbaugh'isms, which I think you tweeted about as well. But he said that like Moses, he's gonna go out leaning on his staff, which I think is truly incredible.
I mean, that's iconic stuff.
Yeah, he's a different dude, man.
Totally different. But and then I don't know. I love people were really running with the fucking analogy too of like, yeah, well, he's getting signs from above, and he's we could go really deep down this rabbit hole with Jim Harbaugh, actually. All right. I think that's all the football talk we got. Shall we bring on our guest, Tyler? Is it time?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right.
All right, let's do it. Give me 1 sec here.
And I'm just gonna peel back the curtain here. For those who are with us at youtube.com/@JenkinsandJones now and forever, we do this show live on YouTube, which means that we now have to have like a guest in the waiting room and bring him on. So my pleasure to welcome on the all-time winningest HBCU basketball coach in history. He's got a book, he's got a podcast. There's a documentary that's being developed right now. We're happy to welcome on Coach Cy Alexander. Coach, thanks for coming on the show. Can you hear us?
My God,
this is the live stream magic that we're talking about.
Y'all seen the sausage being made.
Yeah. Coach, can you hear us? I think we're having some
One.
All right, technical difficulties have been resolved. We're happy to welcome on the all-time winningest HBCU basketball coach in history, Coach Cy Alexander. Coach, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I don't even know where to start. I mentioned some of your bio, but 6 different teams in the NCAA tournament. I said the all-time winningest HBCU coach in history. You've got a book, Beyond the Backboard. There's a documentary being developed right now, the Cy Alexander story. There's podcasts. First of all, what's the transition like from coaching to the media and all that world? I know some guys like it and some guys do not like it.
I tell you what, having technical difficulties to start the show, that's the difference between coaching and being in the media. But it's been fun. I had the opportunity to work several years now with HBCU Go as a color analyst with the legendary Charlie Neal, and that has been great. And he's been a mentor to me to help me make that transition. So the good thing about being in the media is after the game is over, you don't care who won or lost. You go have a nice dinner. But when you're coaching, you always want to come out on top if possible.
Coach Alexander, first off, want to give you a big Aggie pride. I'm a fellow Aggie.
Aggie pride, Tyler.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So yeah, so you know, as Mike mentioned, you took 6 teams to the tournament, 3 different programs, South Carolina State, Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T. You gave us our last tournament appearance. So, you know, just curious of all the programs you coached at, why is North Carolina A&T your favorite?
Because I like the way you set that up. It's right. I'm originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Winston-Salem, and it gave me the opportunity to come home.
Yes.
To my mother at the time was 92, 93 years old. And to get a chance to finish my career at A&T was just awesome. And I have to give all credit to the good Lord, and secondly, to Chancellor Harold Martin, who, in my opinion, is a visionary. He has taken A&T from being a very good institution to one of the 2 best HBCU institutions in the country as far as ranking is concerned. And I just read 2 days ago that Howard University is now #1. So I had the opportunity to work at Howard in fact, my years at Howard, we were the first HBCU in 1981 from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference to go to the NCAA tournament. We actually played in the West Regionals, had a chance to spend a lot of time with the late, great Dick Gregory. But A&T was home. The Chancellor, Harold Martin, is from Winston-Salem, my homeboy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really loved, and then to have taken A&T in my very first year when they hadn't been, as you well know, Tyler, in 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I got my first NCAA tournament victory and spent a lot of time at that tournament with Reverend Jesse Jackson. He was with us every step of the way.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about that 2013 postseason where y'all beat Liberty in the play-in and then lost to Louisville in the round of 64. I've always said that North Carolina A&T, we're technically the chance because that Louisville title got revoked. So technically, North Carolina A&T never lost in the 2013 tournament. And I don't know, a team that didn't lose in the tournament sounds like the national champ to me. So
I tell you what. Tyler, we're on the same wavelength because I say the same thing.
Yeah.
Hang the banner.
2013 national champs, baby. But yeah, you know, you mentioned growing up in Winston-Salem, and you know, when you think HBCU basketball, you think Winston-Salem. There's one name that you know comes to mind, and that's Clarence Big House Gaines, right? And you know the remarkable things that he did at Winston-Salem State. So you know, I'm curious as you growing up, you know, in Winston-Salem during the Clarence Big House Gaines era, and you know, you're someone who went down the same path that he went down. Like, how influential was he to your career path?
Very influential. I had a chance to spend a lot of time. I tell you a story. My late father, who's a graduate of Winston-Salem State and was a season ticket holder, he and Coach Gaines were poker playing buddies. So I got to know the intimate side of Coach Gaines because of my dad. And then one year I was actually the ball boy for Winston-Salem State. So I grew up, I got a chance to watch Earl the Pearl Monroe in it was 1967 when he
41 points a game, right?
Yeah, right. It was like 40-some points a game. But believe it or not, Earl was not the greatest player to come out of Winston-Salem. It was a young man by the name of Cleo Hill.
Yeah.
You go back and do your research on
first
Cleo.
HBCU kid drafted to the NBA. Yep.
And he got drafted by the St. Louis Hawks, and he got blackballed by Cliff Hagan and Bob Pettit coming out of an HBCU as an African-American playing in St. Louis at the time. He was blackballed because he came in and was taken over as a rookie, and Bob Pettit and Cliff Hagan didn't like that. In fact, his son, Cleo Hill Jr., was the coach at Winston-Salem State for a number of years, and he's now the new head coach at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Oh, okay, cool. Yep, that's interesting. I did not know that. But So you mentioned being there during the Earl the Pearl year. Like, what was that like? Because that's someone who I think is probably underrated when we talk about all-time greats. He was called Black Jesus during his college years because he was
Yeah,
that
Black
good.
Jesus.
So yeah, so what was that experience like?
I tell you what, it was. They had to move the games out of Winston-Salem's gym. It's probably set about maybe 2,500 fans, and they had to move the games that year to the Winston-Salem Coliseum, where Wake Forest still plays because of overflowing crowds. And at that time, early on, you only had black folks coming to see Winston-Salem State and white folks going to see Wake Forest. Now, all of a sudden, with Earl and taking the games to the Winston-Salem Coliseums, you had a mixture of a crowd attendance, and you had a lot of Wake Forest guys coming to see Earl play. One of my good friends today is a guy by the name of Gil McGregor. Gil played on those Wake Forest teams along with Charlie Davis. Charlie went on to the pros for a while, and actually he was the athletics director for a short period at North Carolina A&T. But the city was on fire because of Winston-Salem. There was no black or white. He brought the city together. When you're talking about folks coming to see him play from far and wide, averaging over 40 points a game, and they ended up winning the Division II NCAA National Championship that year.
Right, great. Want to talk about your book, Beyond the Backboard, where you're talking about, kind of the uphill battle that you have to fight as an HBCU coach. And, I appreciate that you have a firm understanding of what being an HBCU coach entails. It's, HBCUs, we're not pro mills. We're not programs that, kids come to because they want to go to the league. I think when a good HBCU coach, when they take on that job, they understand that, you're going to be dealing with some kids who are coming in at 18, and you're going to help mold them into young men. You're going to help to be a mentor figure above all else. Like, the sports are secondary because, for a lot of these kids, this is going to be their last stop playing sports. A lot of them are not going to go pro in any capacity. So, I'm curious as to, as I mentioned, I appreciate and I admire how you're someone who has, taken that mantle on of being, more than a basketball coach for these kids. And I'm curious into, how do you implement that into kind of, how you go about in your coaching strategy and in running a program?
Well, to get back to the very first question you talked about, the book. I wrote the book. We go to the NCAA tournament in 2013, my very first year at North Carolina A&T. Well, the next year, 2014, my mother dies in June and my wife dies in September, 3 months apart.
Oh, man.
So the book was therapy for me to kind of relive my life in all of it, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So the book captured, my journey as a young coach at Howard, when I would go to the 5-star camp at Howard Garfinkel. Some kind of way, all the assistant coaches would get introduced at the 5-star camp, but I would never get introduced. And because I was the only HBCU coach at the camp. And I never forget Al Skinner, who was at, I forget where Al was now, but Al has been a lot of places, head coach at Boston College. And he said, man, why don't you say something? And I don't know, I just didn't have the courage, to be quite honest with you, to go up to Howard Garfinkel and say, man, why are you not introducing me? But what I did, though, was I did my job. And I became probably the top assistant coach on the HBCU level. And I gained a reputation at a very young age as somebody that could recognize talent, someone that could communicate and build relationships. And I had relationships with a whole bunch of coaches at every level. In fact, Leonard Hamilton, the current head coach at Florida State, he offered me 2 jobs. He offered me when I had just gotten the job at South Carolina State, and he had just left Kentucky to go to Oklahoma State. And he said, look, man, why don't you come and work for me at Oklahoma State? Well, I was 33 years old, and had been an assistant for 11 years under the late A.B. Williamson, who gave me my opportunity to get into business. And I just was actually tired of being an assistant. So I told Leonard maybe the next time. And because in my opinion, Leonard Hamilton is the greatest recruiter in the country. He never leaves any stone unturned. And one of the reasons I think I was a very good recruiter at the HBCU level was because I learned from the best. So at another point, when Leonard left Oklahoma State to go to Miami, he called me again and asked me. I had won a couple NBAC tournament championships, had been to the NCAA tournament a few times, and he asked me to come again to Miami with him. And I reached out to the late, great John Thompson, Big John, who was one of my mentors. And he said, Coach, why are you going to go back and be an assistant again? I was a finalist for the head coaching job at The Ohio State back in 1989 when Randy Ayers got the job. And I kid Jimmy Jackson to this day because the reason they hired Randy over Cy was because Randy had been on the staff and Jimmy told them that he wasn't coming to Ohio State if Randy didn't get the job. And that's a whole nother, that's in my book. I talk about that. So I listened to Coach Thompson and I stayed on and I don't regret. And the thing I learned is whatever move you make it work. Wherever you are, make it the big time. And that's why I was very successful in being the first HBCU coach to have a television show, thanks to Congressman Jim Clyburn. And thanks to banker Lenny Springs. Those guys were very instrumental in me having my first television show, a coach's show. I was one of the first Blacks HBCU coaches to have a Nike shoe contract. And that's a credit to Howard White, who is the VP of Brand Jordan. H told me when I was an assistant at Howard, he said, Coach, you got what we're looking for at Nike. And whenever you get that chance to be a head coach, we're going to bring you on Nike. And, sometimes people say stuff that they don't really follow up on. Well, I got the job in May. In July, I was signing a contract with Nike. And it was, without a question, the greatest experience in my life to be with Nike for over 20 years. I've been all over the world representing Nike. They used to have what they called a Nike summer vacation coaches trips. And on that trip, anybody was on the Nike trip. In fact, when I tell you a quick story about Michael Jordan, the year that they won the gold, the Dream Team, well, they all came to Hawaii to be on the Nike trip. And during the day, they would have different types of competition. And one competition was a volleyball game. And these guys were betting big money. It was Moses Malone, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and I think David Robinson. So I got picked on Mike's team. And I'm on the back line, and we've been having fun and hanging out. And the ball is hit to me on the back line. And I hit it, and I knock it way out of bounds. Michael was on the front, turned around, and that look, that glare that Michael Jordan would give you when you didn't do something right, he gave me that glare. I didn't make another mistake the rest of the volleyball tournament, and we actually won the Nike Hawaiian volleyball championship. And when we won it, you would have thought that MJ had just won the world championship. That's how into winning championships he was. So that was a big moment to be on that trip and win the volleyball championship with Michael Jordan.
That's great. I wanted to ask you a little bit about HBCUs. I cover high school, college basketball in Long Beach, California, and there's been a big movement. A lot of coaches here working very hard to push more kids towards HBCUs, which, Southern California has a lot of talent, but we're pretty far away from the HBCU sort of, home area. And I'm curious for you, if you get a player that's sort of on the fence of, I'm looking at this school over here, I'm looking at HBCU, what was the pitch? You know what I mean? Like, how would you sort of lay it out to that player of, no, this is a better home for you than going over to this school over here?
Well, I've had several players in the several programs that I've been at that have been from California. Some at Howard, some at South Carolina State, some at Tennessee State. I think I had one guy at A&T from California also. And my pitch, Mike, was simply that we're going to do more for you from a standpoint of making you feel at home, making you feel comfortable, not just being a athlete, but in the real sense of the word, a student athlete. We're going to surround you with people. And fortunately, the HBCUs that I worked at had, not a large contingent of California alums, but alums that would reach out to, say, Mike when he went back home to California and try to find you a summer job or things of that nature. I always approached recruiting from the holistic standpoint. I felt, and Tyler just talked about it earlier, I felt it was my job to do everything I could to develop you as a whole person, as a student, and as a basketball player. So that when 4 years, after 4 years or 5 years, or however long it took you to get a degree, you were able to walk out that door and be a productive citizen in society. I've coached a lot of guys that have made money playing basketball, particularly in Europe. Only coached probably maybe 4 or 5 NBA players, and think of several. Larry Spriggs, who played for me at Howard University, was a member of the LA Lakers Showtime team. Jackie Robinson played for the Houston Rockets. He played for me at South Carolina State. And the rags to riches story that I talk about a lot is a young man by the name of Travis Williams. Travis was a walk-on at South Carolina State. Great athlete, about an undersized power forward, but he had the heart of a lion. And he ended up being the most valuable player in the MEAC tournament his freshman year as a walk-on, the same year in 1989 that we went to our first NCAA tournament, and went on to play 4 or 5 years for the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA. And that's I call that my rags to riches story.
That's a great story. I did want to ask you though, with the change in college sports, I know I feel like actually, especially in basketball, because I do feel like there's a higher percentage of coaches who care about kids than in some of the other sports. When I talk to coaches and players who've been around for a long time, I feel like there's a real sadness in them about a lot of the changes that have happened, because I think we all want, look, if you're going to Duke and you're helping them get $1 billion TV contract, should those players be getting a cut of that money? In my opinion, I know in Tyler's opinion, absolutely. But with the way that everything has changed to where it's just about this school give me the most money this year, okay, now I can get a little bit more money going over here. I feel like that art form of, like you talked about, mentoring, the whole, the student athlete experience, preparing people for the real world, it seems like it's harder to keep that at the forefront in college sports right now. Do you have that sadness, about that kind of coming out of the game, and what do you think could be done to keep that part of it alive, I guess?
Well, what I call college sports, and particularly basketball, I call it free agency now. It's you never have the same, it's like when I was coaching, you said, okay, this guy's a freshman and I'm going to develop him. By the time he's a junior, he's going to be a pretty good basketball player. Because I always, because of being at a mid-major or low-major program, not having the resources, I had to try to recruit guys who were athletic, who were athletes, that I could coach and teach them how to be basketball players. But if you weren't an athlete, I didn't want to recruit you. And that was a 1 to 2 year process to get you ready to play. Now, you never have, if a guy at Howard University, for instance, is a pretty good player as a sophomore, he's not going to be there as a junior. That's just the world that we live in now in the NILs. And one of the things that I think for historically Black colleges and universities to continue to stay relevant at the Division I level, they got to get in the NIL business. And the corporate sponsors have got to see the value of saying, giving a NIL deal to Tyler coming from A&T. And that's probably one of the reasons why Deion Sanders left Jacksonville. And I think Jackson State, I think he did a great job in giving HBCUs exposure, but the opportunity for his son and his other son to make the kind of money that they're making now at Colorado wasn't there. So, I'm a big proponent now of when I get a chance to broadcast games for HBCU Go to talk about the NIL and the collective and how they got to get in the game with that, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind, because the horse is out of the barn, right, and it's not coming back. Yeah. I was very fortunate while I was coaching. I was on the NABC board for 10 years. That's the board of directors that runs college basketball. I was on that. And then I was on a committee called the Academic Enhancement Committee. There were 40 people or so, maybe 50 on the committee, and there were only 7 basketball coaches. This was presidents, college commissioners, athletic directors, and 7 coaches. Cy Alexander was one of those coaches. I think a number of ACC guys, Big East guys, but that was the respect that I had garnered during my career because of the way I carried myself, because of the way our teams played. And I had a chance to sit in on a lot of those high-level meetings where the major decisions were made. And right now, the NCAA, at that point in time, they knew it was going to come to this, but they still don't have a handle as to how to control it, because it's really now, you're talking about why. I was listening to the guy Baycock that played at the University of North Carolina speak a couple of weeks ago. The reason he didn't leave Carolina, the money he was making at UNC was more than his rookie contract would have been in the pros. So if it's free agency in college athletics, in particularly basketball, and every year you better have one of your assistant coaches, when he comes in the office in the morning, he has to be on that portal and just watching names all day. Who can fit into our particular program, because there are thousands of names in the portal, because you can guarantee that if a young man had a pretty good season at your institution, a higher level program is coming after him the next year. And you can also bet that if a guy didn't have a good year, a lower level program is coming after him. So you might have to get 10 new players every year.
Wow. So, mentioning about, how it's, so many things are monetized, and how, college basketball is such big business now. That brings me to kind of, something that I'm torn on a bit in regards to North Carolina A&T, how they left the MEAC for the CAA. And, I understand that, that's part of the growth process for North Carolina A&T. They're going to make more money playing in the CAA than playing in the MEAC. But there's a part of me that, I miss the MEAC. I miss playing Howard and Hampton and FAMU, way more than playing like George Mason, right? Like that doesn't move me at all. But, it's, that there's a conundrum there that, for HBCUs to grow, there are going to unfortunately have to be some traditions they might have to leave behind, which I understand from a monetary standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, it doesn't sit right with me. But I get it. And North Carolina A&T is a school that is very progressive, always in growth mode. Our motto there is always doing, never done. They were building up when I was a student there. I just went back for a career fair last week. They're still building up. Enrollment is at 15,000 now, which is insane for an HBCU. right? The largest HBCU in the country. Like in about 10 or 15 years, there's probably going to be 20, 25,000 kids at an HBCU, which is insane to think about when the average enrollment at an HBCU is like 3,000 or so, right? So, I understand that North Carolina A&T is in growth mode, but at the same time, there's a part of me that it's a little bittersweet how we have to leave the traditions behind, like playing in the MEAC. And I'm just curious on how you stand on that.
Well, I tell you what, there's two ways to look at it. One, it is growth, and you have to try to go as far as you think your resources can take you, and you got to have. That's why I call Chancellor Harold Martin. I call him a visionary, and give you. I think A&T has got to understand a couple things. You got to make sure you're getting the financial resources that you need to compete. I tell Aggies this all the time. Don't be surprised that if you don't win very many championships over the next few years as you're trying to figure out how to climb that ladder financially to get the resources that you need to compete at the level that you need to compete at. When I was doing the research for my book, Beyond the Backboard, my unique HBCU experience in the shadows of big-time college basketball, I did some research from a monetary standpoint. The university, A&T's budget, and this was probably in, I don't know what it is now, but this was in 2016, 2017, somewhere around there when I started my book. And their budget, and there was talk about moving to the Big South at that time, moving to the CAA. Their budget was like a total of right around $14 million. That's for all sports, okay? The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, their men's basketball budget was like $31 million. A&T's total budget was like $14 million. The University of North Carolina's overall budget at that time was $85 million. So you see the disparity, and I'll never forget, I was with some Aggies when A&T Coach Broadway was a very good friend of mine. I think he went to play Richmond in a playoff game, and he got beat pretty good. And I told somebody, an Aggie, as you know how those Aggies are, they don't like to lose. And the guy was complaining we weren't ready. It had nothing to do with whether we were ready or not. It had everything to do with we just didn't have the quality of athlete that the University of Richmond had. And when I showed them, and this was when A&T was considering the CAA, what I think Richmond's budget was like triple in football what A&T's budget was. So you've got to work on, and Tyler, one of the things that people don't know, and you may know this being in the media, one of the reasons A&T left the MEAC was not as much for sports, but for research. Chancellor Martin wanted to move A&T up to another level as far as research was concerned. Everybody's looking at it from a conference standpoint because of the sports and everything, but that was a primary reason why he did that. Now, in being in that league, the CAA, and I don't know whether it was a smart move to leave the Big South and go right to the CAA when you really haven't, really accomplished much in the Big South. And A&T, again, as you well know, is very aggressive in everything that they do. So again, I tell Aggies and I tell anybody connected with the university that wants to hear it or doesn't want to hear it, you've got to put the financial resources in there. You've got to make sure that if you're going to compete and you want to win championships, quit complaining and give to the Aggie Foundation, give to the athletic program, give to the collectives so that these young men and women can be a part of the NIL game.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate the great insight and conversation there. The book is Beyond the Backboard. The documentary coming out is the Cy Alexander story. Make sure you're looking out for those, and we'll make sure they're on the Jenkins and Jones feeds. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We did have one topic we didn't get to, but we're going to get to it with John on Sunday. We wanted to make sure everyone was together to talk about that. But Coach, once again, thanks for coming on, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Bye.
Thank you, guys.